right, thank you so much for still staying. Our second interview is focused on EFCC versus Mrs. Jonathan Vendetta or anti-corruption war. Now, the media war between the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the wife of former President Goodluck Jonathan started, and there have been so many drama.
It's just a few days ago, hundreds of Ijaw youths and women took to the streets of Yenagoa, the capital of Bayelsa State, to protest what they described as a continuous harassment of Patience Jonathan.
Now, before that, the Ijaw Youth Council described as unacceptable and illegal to place the wife of former president on media trial without due process.
The youth organization said Dame Patience Jonathan, like most former first ladies, made her money from gifts and as well should not be targeted.
Well, a lot being said. The youth organization said Dame Jonathan, like many other first ladies, just as Utibe said, did get most of her monies from gifts and, of course, some support from people. Well, we do have our guest in the house who will be talking to us more about the updates on the issue between EFCC and Mrs. Jonathan. We do have LIVINGSTONE WECHIE with us. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
WECHIE, good to have you here. Now, tell us, you're among the vanguard of people who have been calling for due process and proper investigation of the matter and rule of law to be applied. What really are your concerns about this case?
Well, first of all, may I start by saying that the issue of corruption has gained prominence in the various speeches of those that came to power in Nigeria, either through coup d'etat or through democratic processes. And it has become a mantra for several governments as to justify the reason for their coming into being. But laying a foundation on the issue that has been on for a while now, I like the preamble you raised, the media war. It's been a media war and not a judicial procedure, as it were. Now, that will make me go to the act establishing the EFCC. The powers conferred on the EFCC and the act establishing it states clearly, I think section 6.7 subsection 1A states that the EFCC has powers to cause to be conducted an investigation on anyone or organization, who may have committed an offense, that fall under the provisions of that act. Now, the B part says it shall cause to conduct or shall cause an investigation to be conducted as to determine whether a person's lifestyle, assets or properties or wealth justifies his source of income. Now, that is very, very simple because we have a criminal code, we have a penal code. That is an issue of investigation. The bottom line is that no act of any individual, no matter how it is carried out, can amount to an offense if that act is not defined or provided for by any legal instruments within our municipal laws. Now, what the act gives the EFCC as powers is to investigate and not to convict, not to criminalize. Now, you may have powers to question my wealth just as the act confers on them such powers, but that act does not compel me to tell you how I got my money. We are talking about law, not morality. The law is that I have a right to remain silent.
Is it former First Lady under investigation by the EFCC?
By proxy.
How do you mean by proxy?
What I mean by proxy, very simple. Monies owned by the former First Lady have been frozen in accounts belonging to her. There is someone called Waripamo Budafa who is undergoing trial, and they have tied him to the money, with the machination that he owns the money, whereas the money is owned by the First Lady in her account.
In her personal account, that has her personal name.
In her personal account, in her personal name. And there are companies that were originally, bearing the account, the monies in question, in the card-bearing account, in the BVN and details of the former First Lady. We have narrated those issues during our last interview. We've recounted them. But what is going on now is that the EFCC is seeking to exercise powers by way of, in its opinion, you have money, therefore, because the money in question does not satisfy our own, quest as to know how you made that money, therefore you're a criminal. But the issues are very, very simple. You have the power to question my wealth. The law is simple. That money you're questioning, have you shown that I stole it? Because in the criminal, in the common law practice as is established in Nigeria, he who alleges has onus of proof that I have money does not amount to me stealing that money. Does the law say that there is a limit to the amount of money anybody should have in Nigeria? Does it mean that the EFCC can criminalize me? Does the law limit the amount of money I should have?
But like you rightly said, the EFCC can question the sources of the money.
The EFCC, the Act says it shall question whether the wealth you have justifies your source of income.
And that wealth is tied to credible sources of revenue, which is possibly business or any...
You're the one bringing the issue of credible revenue.
I'm asking.
Now, if they have a right to question all of that,
yes.
But do they have the right to convict me? The law is that. Let me clear you. Let me.
Any conviction at the moment?
There is a media conviction already going. You've seen machineries of the EFCC on various media platforms going about blackmailing the former First Family. Sahara reporters, you can go ahead and name them. In fact, most of the mainstream media houses have been cowed. There is a one-sided story on this side where everybody is made to believe that Mr. Special Jonathan is a criminal.
I know you won't quote junk sources of journalism.
Well, thank you. Thanks for calling them junk sources. Yes. Okay.
But let's stay on the issue now.
Yes.
I want to find out. Yes, the EFCC, as you rightly said, has the powers to ask questions.
To ask questions, yes.
The Act empowers them to so do. Yes. Where they find, somebody's living above what appears to be his source of income.
Yes.
Has there been any explanation from your own end, based on your own investigation, where this source of $15 million was from?
It's very, very simple. The EFCC has not even put forward to Mrs. Patience Jonathan to ask her how she made her money. That's why she has reason to challenge why her money should be frozen without her consent. And that's the more reason why we view it as a conspiracy between the EFCC and SKYE. Because SKYE has all the records, it's in their data. It's not even $15 million. The EFCC has, through their media machineries, mentioned $30 million, $31 million, $20 million. The money is just $9-point-something million. And there are bank details to establish this. But because the action of the EFCC is not in fighting corruption, but because also recently during the Chimobani Memorial Lecture held by the Civil Liberties Organization in the South mentioned this issue, and they alleged that the EFCC has an extortionist department that extorts monies from, accused persons just because their agenda is collect money from them, extort money from them, intimidate them, because the fear of EFCC has become, the beginning of this.
What's the link of Dudafa to all of this?
Dudafa was the SA domestics of the former First Family. And as SA domestics, you and I agree that, the upkeep of the former First Family, is one item on his table. And as such, there is a protocol around all of that. There is a relationship between himself and the former First Family. Just as the current administration enjoys such protocols, they have aids in the various areas. As such, you cannot divorce him from that relationship. It's a master-servant relationship. And whatever may have, transpired between the both of them, as per the instructions that have come from his boss, carry out these particular, instructions and so on, he was bound to do that. But the question then arises, why pick out just this former First Lady to ridicule in this manner? Goodluck Jonathan gave up and conceded defeat during the last election. The world has come to acknowledge him. There have been former First Families in this country who have been parading all manners of luxury. Nobody has gone after them. This cannot be the first gift item President Muhammadu Buhari should give to Jonathan by subjecting his wife to this level of ridicule and this level of reproach. And that's why, if we want to get legalistic on the matter, the question is there any law that criminalizes the ownership of money in Nigeria? The answer is no. Is there any law that states that if you have a particular amount of money, it amounts to a crime? Because the limitation of the EFCC Act, which they are beginning to act as an overdrive, is that they can only investigate. They cannot
Is it not what the EFCC is doing at the moment?
They cannot
investigation they're doing. on the
They
source
are
of the money.
freezing people's accounts. Let me tell you, as I speak to you, the late mother of the former First Lady, her company, accounts under her company have been frozen. They've all been frozen. NGO Arira Richard Foundation, owned by the former First Lady, their accounts have been frozen. I don't want to go ahead to mention the banks. But that's what you talked about.
Some persons have said, like we cited what the Joy Youth Council said during their protest recently, and said, as a former First Lady, she would have, benefited from gifts or whatever from people based on her position.
Yes.
But some persons would also say that she is using her position as First Lady for gratification, and that may be a basis to influence policies or whatever one way or the other to whoever is giving the gift. Is that also not a basis for somebody to ask questions?
You have evidence to all of that. I will just hear those things as...
No, I cited what the IYC said, and you agreed with it.
The issue is this: the IYC has said so. Of course, people receive gifts. Okay, there is no law criminalizing receipt of gifts. But again, let's also go law. She's not under obligation to tell you how she made her money. There is no law in Nigeria, and I challenge every lawyer in this country to come up with any law that compels me to explain my source of money. The law is simple. If I have money, you cannot convict me because I have money, no matter the amount. What you can do, it is up to you, he who alleges as onus of proof. If I have money and you think I stole it, tell me where I stole that money from. Tell me how I stole that money. And tell me when I stole that money. Because he who has been accused of a crime must be well informed of the crimes that he has allegedly committed. Because all these explanations and narrative, we are practicing law in Nigeria.
Let's look at the role of the banks. Let's look at the role of the banks here, because the banks played a critical role here. You've said nobody can, challenge you where you got your money. But
if I stole it, you have to show that I stole it. I'm not under obligation. I have the right to remain silent in the course of that investigation.
Yeah, but at the same time, if, as in this case, the money is taken away from you, you have to explain, because the First Lady has come out to say she has, basis to prove that this money belongs to her.
Of course.
Good. And what Nigerians, we're still talking about, because you have said that they've dented the image of the First Lady, and the First Lady has an opportunity, the former First Lady, beg your pardon, has an opportunity now to come out and clear or cleanse our image by perhaps telling Nigerians this and this and this were the source of the money. So EFCC, you really don't have any basis to hold on to my account or freeze my account.
Yes.
Isn't that what we're supposed to say?
Remember, the EFCC has not officially served her any allegation papers, or you may call it charges. But they have gone ahead to freeze her accounts. Does it not show that what the EFCC is doing is highly mischievous? That is a grand plan. And let me clear on this matter, because we've talked about the former First Lady coming forward to explain and clear the air. Clear the air on what there is a grand plan to systematically seize every asset belonging to the Goodluck Jonathan's family. And it's ongoing. And that's why, just like the gentleman that was here, raised issues that aides to the current administration have been accused of various degrees of crime, beginning from Amechi, allegedly, where our group petitioned the EFCC and wrote several reminders. And they have been Christian and beatified saints. The issues of the current Minister for Interior and the Chief of Staff and the SGF and various other aides to the current administration. And I believe that Mr. President is resolute enough. He has gained laurels around the world. You have raised the issues as to the role of the banks. It is our view that it was the deliberate ploy by SKYE Bank, which is why it is my opinion that, as I come from the old eastern part of Nigeria, that our people should begin to consider pulling out their investments from SKYE Bank because we are no longer safe with that bank. And it is my opinion, if they think otherwise, they can challenge my opinion in court and say I don't have the right to my own opinion. Because with what the SKYE Bank is doing is sending messages that you can have an account with them, and then EFCC comes and connives with them and freezes your account, and then you will not know. Yeah, you will not have access to your account, and that raises a lot of questions as to their duty or obligations to fidelity. They ought to protect their customer. Does Specialist Jonathan have an account with them? The issue is yes, but has SKYE Bank come to clear the air? Did she register an account in her name? The SKYE Bank has details on all of this, and it is up to them, and curious though why they have failed to substantiate all of these matters. But coming to the Niger Delta, what is the message from the Niger Delta? It is very, very unfortunate that, the government has to pursue development. The Niger Delta had the crisis where Tompolo was declared wanted, and suddenly Avengers emerged, and then oil goes down and we have recession. This is the father and the parent of the Niger Delta. It's been hunted and hounded. And we are suggesting, Mr. President, please don't allow agencies under you, because the box up on your table, don't allow these agencies to spark up another round of crisis in the Niger Delta, because it's an issue of security also. When the Niger Delta people who have always cried about marginalization begin to see their leader, their number one and most celebrated leader around the world today, apart from the fact that they lost out in the presidency trying to recover from that pain, is being subjected to this type of ridicule. Not everybody will act like me. You may begin to hear, you've heard threats about the Avengers threatening to bring down the NNPC towers as a result of this matter. You've heard the IYC talk about grave consequences. Why bring fuel to an already burning fire? You want to set the place on fire. Everybody may not be, self-controlled like myself or disciplined like myself, because they don't have their ways of reacting to this form of injustice. And it's our opinion that Mr. President should rethink and caution the EFCC, call them to order, because we have challenged the EFCC to show in any document where, according to them, Patience Jonathan claimed ownership of any $31 million in any account anywhere. All she has claimed is with SKYE. And unfortunately, what the EFCC did was they filed an action, surreptitious suit, seeking to get access into taking over Patience Jonathan's monies. When her lawyers got wind of this, they filed a counter action. In fact, Patience Jonathan sued SKYE, sued Dudafa, sued the four companies, and sued EFCC, seeking for an order of court stopping them from taking over her money. Because what the EFCC is doing currently is just they're only interested in seizing that money and impoverishing the Jonathan's family. And the overall agenda is to attack and damage his international rising profile. Jonathan can do a lot for the current administration. And Mr. President should listen to the voice of wisdom, because we are all in his interest. I'm not aware that Mr. President's desire is that Nigeria should break up under his watch. I'm also not aware that it is his desire that Nigeria should collapse on his head. I have heard him severally admit that he wants to bring about a new Nigeria through change. And let that change in question begin with him. We will support him. Nobody will intimidate us. We will support him. But he cannot extricate himself from all of it, because he has just 1 minute, he has the chance to invite Jonathan. It's an advice. If you have issues, for God's sake, this man just considered defeat. The world is, even the other day, during the leadership award, Mr. President acknowledged what Jonathan did. Why not respect him enough and stop subjecting him to this type of ridicule? Now, avoid any kind of crisis that may trail this. That's our worry.
Now, Livingstone, while you said the former First Lady does not have any obligation to declare her source of income, how then do you justify the fact that it was during an investigation that the former Special Advisor to the former President on domestic affairs, talking about Dudafa, that it was during that investigation that they traced about 4 accounts to him, after which, of course, the First Lady herself deposed to an affidavit insisting that those monies in those accounts belong to her. So when you say that she's been tried by proxy, do you see in this sense that the EFCC deliberately went after the former First Lady to tarnish her image?
What is wrong with that? That I gave my aid money, and then he puts it in his company account and gives it a card-bearing account, and upon my instruction I directed that an account be opened in my name, and the bank in question, SKYE Bank, brings all the documents to me, and I feel and this was 2 years ago, not even today. From our findings, 4 companies, you can own 1,000 companies. Does any law limit you from how many companies you should own? But get this clearly, the companies in question are accounts opened with SKYE Bank, not Heritage Bank, not Wema Bank. What the EFCC did through their media machineries was to cumulatively sum up the monies in Heritage, Wema, and SKYE Bank and heaped it on the former First Lady. But money owned by her. Now I want to say this: will a thief come publicly to say this money belongs to me?
But it's also expected that she explains the source of money, and you are saying she's under no obligation to explain the source of money.
Legally, she's not under any obligation. However,
are you saying if for instance I'm earning 150,000 naira, and all of a sudden you can calculate how long I've been working for that communications, and
go ahead
and you see $1 million in my account, that question should not be asked where I got that
You
money
can
from.
question it, but will you succeed in court in convicting me for stealing? You will not
No
succeed.
conviction.
No,
Explanation.
you're
Where
talking
that money
about
came from.
you're talking
That's
about
my question.
explanation. She has not been invited to explain. Mind you.
Okay.
Number one. Number two is that she's also she has a right upon the invitation to remain silent. And our pledge is very simple. President Muhammadu Buhari should be statesman enough. Invite Goodluck Jonathan, this is your predecessor, and resolve this issue and stop embarrassing them because it's not in your interest.
All right.
Okay.
Livingstone, WECHIE, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for coming. Well, up next is On Your Own.
Nigeria, a nation of 160 million people, the most populous black nation and ninth in the world. In less than a decade, about 40 million youths would be in